This is the Spurs POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the San Antonio Spurs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, the Spurs tonight, they found themselves in a spot riding high off of their berth into the knockout rounds of the NBA Cup, and in a situation where you're just not trying to find yourself in a hangover game. And by the end of it, they found themselves in a little bit of a hangover game. Welcome into the Spurs Postcast right here on Locked On Spurs, part of the #1 sports podcast network in all of the land, the Locked On Podcast Network, because of the everydayers like yourself that make this all possible. Hanging out with NBA champion Devin Brown. My name is Casey Viera. Spurs tonight go down 125-112 in Minnesota, wrapping up a 4-game road swing. They ultimately hit it an even 2-2, but part of a bigger stretch that's even going to get a little bit dicier. But Devin, as you like to say, those cold nights in Minnesota catching up to San Antonio tonight.
Absolutely. One of the toughest places to play in the NBA. Great city. Tough when it's that cold, Casey. But let's get into it.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Because, yeah, like you said, they look pretty good. It didn't look like the sub-20 temps. I think that's what Jacob Toby on the broadcast said tonight was going on in Minnesota. They didn't seem overly affected by it because they shot 54% in the first half, took a 1-point lead, a 62-61 advantage into the break. They had 16 points off 9 Minnesota turnovers. They came out flowing. They looked all right. And then the third quarter, just as good, went up by as many as 9, thanks to a Dylan Harper injection. We'll hit on more on that in a minute because he played very well, spearheaded what was a 16-7 run at the time to put them up by that margin. Ultimately, that lead cut to 4, and then finally fatigue setting in. Minnesota goes off 36-19 in the fourth quarter of play. 3 quarters of good, a fourth quarter of not so hot. That ultimately plagues them tonight in the difference of what turns out to be a 13-point loss, putting a bow on a 4-game homestand before they come back to town this week.
All right, so that first quarter, like you said, started off really good, all right? And the Spurs have done that all season. Second quarter had, the second and third quarter, they have some troubles, right? But the second quarter, the ball was moving. That second group in the first half, outscoring the bench 25-13. So you're fixing some of those second quarter problems. Then you get to the end, right, of the second quarter, right before halftime. Now it's a different story. Minnesota makes a little bit of a run. Those are all fixable things. Third quarter, come out in the second half, playing well. Balls continuing to move. Shots are going in. You got people playing well. Fox, Vassell, Keldon, Harper, playing well. Fourth quarter. Look, Casey, I'm like this. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Hey, I went to go get me a high C, and I come back, and Minnesota's all of a sudden in some kind of 3-point contest. They're coming from everywhere and anybody. Casey, I couldn't figure out what was going on.
You know what? For special occasions like this, we usually lead into it with something that we call it a turning point. So since we're there, let's do it.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Because like you said, that clock switches from 0 to end the third to an even 12 to start the fourth, and bang, it spiraled out of control. 36-19 was ultimately the margin. Minnesota hits 7 of their first 12 threes. It felt like they hit 12 threes in the fourth quarter. So honestly, that number was a surprise. It was an 11-3 flurry right from the jump in the first couple of minutes that ultimately proved to be the difference in that. It looked like a team that just kind of ran out of gas. Again, they're in the middle of a 4-game, a 9. I know that look from you right now. That's not particularly an excuse, but let me put a tidy up the point. I know you well enough by now to know that's coming. But it looked like a team that was on the back end of 4 games in 9 nights, comes home for a cup of coffee to let the dogs out, and then goes right back on the road again. And it got the better of them. And you can't do that when you got Anthony Edwards on the other side, putting up 32, his 5th straight 30-point game.
Casey, if I had a violin while you were talking, it sounds good. But let me tell you something. Firsthand knowledge here. Those guys travel well enough, and the hotels that they're staying at are very good hotels. All right. That's not an excuse. I don't want to hear any of this about tired. They get paid enough money to show up. That's all Coach Mitch is asking, right?
They
So
have
here we
heat.
go.
You can confirm they have heat in the hotel. So
They have what?
they have heat in the hotel. So what you're
Sometimes
saying.
you walk in there, it's like Africa when you walk in that hotel. I know where they're staying at. Very nice hotel. Hey, very nice hotel. And let me tell you this. So sometimes, when you walk by that scores table, you're going to get a little powder for your hands. And
Yeah.
I think what made them intimidated is, like you said, the gentleman that's in charge of the clock goes from 3 to 4 because they looked and it was like, what's going on? It's the fourth quarter? Oh, my goodness. Hey, the rotations were bad. Threes were coming from everywhere. And I saw a side of Coach Mitch, and we'll get into this later. I saw a side of Coach Mitch that I really, really like, Casey. But that fourth quarter, it was a disaster. It's something, you know what? If you're a coach, you don't even, you'll watch the first 3 quarters for teaching points. But that fourth quarter, I'm throwing that tape away.
Yeah, sometimes as we've learned, it's just this slight little moments of vulnerability of youth that we do have. For as much as we've hyped up the Spurs teams at times, they've shown that they have that slight little, it's not totally clicked yet. There's still the lapses, the moments in judgment, the lapses in judgment where it happens, where they show that vulnerability, they show that youth, and that happened again tonight as they dropped to 13-6 on the season. Some final numbers for you. De'Aaron Fox, the high man, he goes for 25 with 4 assists, 10 of 15 from the field. Devin Vassell at 22, another strong showing, his third straight 20-point game. Only 1 of 9 of 3. Keldon Johnson, 22 points, 8 rebounds. Dylan Harper, 17 points in 20 minutes, 8 of 12 from the field. Did not record an assist, but probably the best that he's looked since he's made his return in his third game back with San Antonio. And coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to expand on that. Devin alluded to it a little bit. What Harper did right, his fit with Fox, and one little moment in particular that might be the precursor, perhaps, for something a little bit bigger. We've got that for you coming up next here on the Spurs Postcast right here on Locked On Spurs. But before we do that, let's talk about a few of our friends that drive this program. And we're going to have a conversation about Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you, of course, by Prize Picks. The holiday season is the best time for sports. We've seen it, obviously, big day at NFL today. You got the bowl games coming up, big time basketball, NBA season starting to pick up, and then you're going to have the NFL playoffs, of course, right around the corner too, all of it happening at once. And while we're making these choices every day, one of the most fun places, I guess, you can go to make another choice, the right call, hopefully, is Prize Picks. It's the easiest way to get in on your daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player props, player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're good. You're good to go. Fast, simple, easy, available in 45 states. And if you're in Texas, which a large portion of our viewers are, obviously, it counts. You're good to go. Texas, California, Florida, Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, all one word, to get in $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. With Prize Picks, it's good to be right. As is the case with FanDuel. NFL Sundays, we know they move fast. We're already week 13, week 12, week 13. We're moving along. That's all we need to know. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel that much more exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. On the Spurs side of things, you're probably not feeling great about that tonight. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, FanDuel.com to place your NFL bets all season long. And as they say with FanDuel, the games move fast. So can you. All right, welcome back into the Spurs Postcast right here on Locked On Spurs. San Antonio tonight going down 125-112 to Minnesota on the last of a 4-game road swing. Back home for Memphis on Tuesday, but then it's right back on the road for 4 more between the back-to-back of what it is on the tail end of that Memphis game, Cleveland, New Orleans, and then, of course, the Lakers in the NBA Emirates Cup knockout round that's coming up on December 10th. But before we get there, Devin, you noticed something about Dylan Harper tonight. He looked probably, I don't want to speak for you, but it felt like this was the best flow that he's in, best impact that he's made on the game, even though the assist numbers weren't there. They were not technically non-existent. He didn't turn the ball over on the other side of that, but it looked the most fluid that he's been. The numbers indicated that because the biggest run of the game in the third quarter was him operating at point guard. But it was a dynamic and a decision by Mitch Johnson midway through the fourth that kind of sticks with you looking back at how this game went down.
Yeah, about 6:10 in that fourth quarter. Minnesota runs a play where Devin Chinzo gets a three at the top. It was Fox that got screened. Obviously, the Spurs know, the scouting report, and Mitch made an interesting decision right away, going to the young man Dylan Harper. Now, Spurs fans say, well, De'Aaron comes out at that time. He was giving him a couple of minutes before they need him down the stretch. Or there's something going on. The thing that I love about Coach Mitch is that he's holding De'Aaron Fox accountable. De'Aaron Fox is an all-star player. No one's going to take credit away from that. But a lot of those games in Sacramento were meaningless. Here, it's different, right? And you're going to have games like this where, yeah, we did what we needed to do the other night in Denver. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have to say anything about Pop. He's not the coach anymore. Mitch wanted to win that game tonight. All right. So he made that move. Now, Dylan Harper put it tough on himself, taking a bad shot when he was out there. But let me tell you something. If he had played the same way, went on a personal 4-0, or even if the team goes on a 6-8-0 run, Casey, we'll be looking at a lot of stuff on the waiver wire here if that would have happened. But I'll tell you what, just Dylan Harper plays with so much poise. DNA never lies. He comes from a family of basketball. So he had a tremendous night tonight.
What do you think? And we've seen a small sample size, so it might even be too premature for me to even ask this because it's only been a handful of games now. It's only been 3 games that we've seen him and Fox on the floor, and then probably altogether, I would imagine the combined amount of time that they have been on the floor together, maybe 20 minutes. Not anything imposing or just a huge sample size. So again, maybe it might be premature of me and silly of me to ask this, but what have you liked out of that so far? What haven't you liked? Is there anything that can sway you one way or another, or do you think it's just still too early to tell?
Yeah, let's go with the positives first. First of all, that's a very quick backcourt if you want to go with those 3, Castle, Fox, and Harper. My problem with it is the shooting aspect, and then there's another problem with it because if you have those 3, you're going to have Wemby, R. Cornette out there as a 5. Well, now at that 4 position, who are you going to have? You're going to have Champagnie? Are you going to have Barnes? Are you going to have Keldon? Are you going to have Vassell? So I know a lot of people want to see the 3 of them play together, but as far as it depends on who the team is and what the matchups are. Because on one end, it looks good on paper or on your PlayStation, whatever it is that suits your boat. But in reality, it's going to take away minutes from Vassell, Keldon, Barnes. And those guys have been leading the way and carrying this basketball team up until this point. So I think you'll get a little bit of it at times, but I don't think it'll be long stretches right now.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen enough out of the Harper Fox side of things, just the 2 of them alone, to get that I guess really surprised us one way or another. The way I see it, I think that we saw a lot of those things, like you said. The ball, it's a speedy backcourt. The ball moves. It seemed pretty fluid, which maybe if there wasn't a whole lot of herky jerky to it or anything like that. It did seem a little bit more fluid than I was expecting. But like you did say, it was noticeable that there's when you have the two of them on the floor at the same time who do have similar flaws in that, of course, being they're not particularly knockdown shooters, it is noticeable because it seems like there's just portions of the floor where the ball just kind of stagnates and that shot hunting is not particularly there. And so what do? You're just dribbling things out, dribble. I mean, that's the third time that we've talked about, this happening to them on the trip. And tonight was a number indicated that they only had 17 assists. I think that's the low of the season through the first 19, but don't quote me. Either way, 17 is not a great number. But I'm not particularly sure, and it's probably because Castle's not here too, and I think that's part of it. I don't know if I really got to gauge one way or another off of this as to how it's going to look. Like, I certainly wasn't blown away, but at the same time, I certainly wasn't coming to this realization that, hey, this ship is going to sink. And it's not going anywhere fast. So I guess that, like, if there's anything encouraging about what we've seen so far with that, it's that. Maybe it's just kind of gray neutral.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of been my takeaway through the first 3 games, 20 minutes, whatever you want to call it.
The thing about those players and what they're learning about each other as well is they're so great in what they do that they'll be able to figure it out on the fly like they have. But like you say, at times, they're both left-handed and, they want to get to the middle of the floor. Yes, they have counter moves. I get all that. But we saw a couple possessions there where one goes left, kicks it. Then here he comes trying to get downhill, kicks it back. And then they're back. It's like, what's going on here? And that's what, you're leading to when you say that sometimes the offense it gets stagnant. Well, that's what's happening is they both really need to put it on the floor to create. Well, if they're doing that, just make sure, because I have Fox with 2 assists, and I think Harper had 1, maybe?
None. Yeah.
None.
Fox
none. He had none.
4. Harper didn't record one tonight.
And so if you're a wing player, like, hey, you two, like, we're over here. But that's what I'm saying. Like, they're both dynamic and both of them scored the ball well tonight. But now when they have a conversation with Mitch about the game tonight, we'd like to see you guys around between 4 and 7 assists, at least.
And there's a trickle down, I think, with that too, because if you're running that lineup, Luke Cornett is essentially unplayable because the majority of his shots are right there in the paint and they don't have him space the floor. So that's one guy you take off the floor.
And think about Wemby. Wemby's going to be out at the 3-point line.
And I'm not even, and this is me living in the present, and we're not even talking about Victor. So, I mean, that's an outright completely different beast that we haven't gotten to with it. We'll see. I mean, I think the jury is still very much out on it. I think there is a lot to figure out. Not the worst problem in the world to have. And at the end of the day, I don't think that they're prioritizing that at the moment because they have a lot of other things they need to fix. Transition, stopping the 3-pointer in transition, the perimeter defense. I mean, we saw with them, it's still lacking at times. And when you get a team that can shoot like Minnesota, they can get going like that. And you got that irritant DiVincenzo who's just been doing this forever, regardless of the uniform to the Spurs. The perimeter defense got to be on the P's and Q's, and it just wasn't there. And I don't think the Harper Fox thing is paramount on their list of concerns right now.
And this will burn you up even more if you're a coach, is that Mitch went with a small lineup and they're still getting beat in transition.
It's a good point. That's a very good point. I didn't even look at it but that honestly probably makes it worse.
Oh,
yeah, that makes it a lot worse.
Hey, I used to see Pop after a loss like this, strolling down, because the coaches have their area, the players have their area. And if he came down, strolling down, he wouldn't say anything. He just walked down the players' aisle and then walked back. You're like, man, we might have practice when we get off this plane.
All right, real quick, before we put a bow on things and talk about our player of the game, I want to get a player perspective about how you handle what's on deck, because you're coming back from a 4-game road trip. You check in, you get one night at home against a Grizzlies team, and then it's the first of a back-to-back, and then you're back on the road again for another essentially 2 weeks. In the back half of that playoff atmosphere of basketball, what's a young Devin Brown doing to get through that type of stretch, or at least be in the middle of the stretch to get by towards the through the middle of the month?
Hey, they're coming, so they'll be back Next game's home. They'll be back tonight. The Spurs organization will lock the gym. Don't want to see anybody. Spend it with your families. Get outside of your bubble. That's what's being told to them. Now you come back. You get ready. You got a game you got to take care of before the big one. All right. Here's a chance. Another chance we talked about to redeem yourself before the big one against LA. So, hey, go to your local gym, West Campus. That's where I'd go, West Campus, Casey. Get some shots up. Just me and 20 of my closest friends, just small crowd. Get some shots up and get ready for Memphis.
Small crowd, 20 of your people coming through.
Hey, learned it from AI, Allen Iverson. He had an entourage. I had an entourage. About 20 of us. Small.
Hey, our player of the game tonight, he's got an entourage.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
And a historic stretch for Anthony Edwards tonight, becoming the Minnesota Timberwolves already franchise leader in 30-point games. He had his 5th consecutive one tonight, and big reason why Spurs are heading home from that cold Minneapolis winter with an L tonight.
Absolutely. Ant-Man, he does what he does. He's the best 2-guard in the league. If anybody wants to argue that. He showed it tonight. He can score every single way possible. Love to see the fact that Mitch tried Carter Bryant on him, but that's a different matchup from the Joker. Edwards was looking forward to it, and he had a big night.
31 points, 31 too many for San Antonio tonight as they go down 125-112, dropping to 13-6 on the season. Again, back Tuesday, home against the Grizzlies before they depart for the road again. And as always, you know where to catch Devin Brown and myself right after that thing is done, talking about the highs and the lows of the night that was coming up on Tuesday. Be sure to come back in the AM. Jeff Garcia, as always, got you covered on the day-to-day side of things with the Locked On Spurs title pod. And as we always do on this program, give you some love at the end of it. The everydayers like yourself, you guys are the reason that we have these postcasts, that we have these squad shows, and above all else, the Locked On Podcast Network is the #1 sports podcast network in all of the land. So as always, got to show love to the everydayers like yourself as well. San Antonio, not their night tonight. Spurs go down 115-112 in a cold, brisk, sub-20 temperature night in Minneapolis. So for my dear friend Devin Brown, I'm Casey Viera. Thank you for hanging out with us on a Sunday. Have a good work week. We'll talk to you Tuesday.